All right, we are back with another off-season edition of Patriot Central Radio. We're live on Facebook, Patriot Central Radio, and you can catch us on YouTube as well. Matt LePan here, joined by our co-host, as we are every week, Brian Phillips. Brian, what's going on?
What's happening, guys? How we doing?
It's a beautiful week. Patriots off-season is in full swing where nothing is happening. So we're going to get to a classic off-season debate. We're going to talk about the Mount Rushmores of Patriots, and I know you and I have a couple differing opinions. And then we'll let you rant at the end. I know that the Patriots fans are sticking in your craw a little bit.
Yeah, it's that point in the off season where everyone's going a little stir crazy. We need training camp to get here so bad. Everyone's a little crusty and a little curmudgeon-y and a little ornery about they're dying on their hills. You know how Patriots fans get. You can't tell them anything about Tom Brady these days. But
don't you talk about that goat.
Yeah, see, I think we're gonna have a problem. But I mean, let's do the Mount Rushmore thing. I learned a little bit about Mount Rushmore today, a very little bit. But
yeah, did you learn how many people are on it, or
I'm gonna go
send you back to the history book?
I'm going to go with 4. There are 4 men.
There we go.
In Mount Rushmore, which meant I immediately, right before the show, had to pick a 4th because I was at 3. So, what can you do?
Well, that's neither here nor there. We can get to the history lessons later. Let's dive right into our Patriots Mount Rushmore here in the middle of the offseason. We're going to start off, and I just need to throw this disclaimer out there because I can see Patriots fans already are going to have a problem. Players only on this. Obviously, if we send that out, Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft would be on there. There's no dynasty without those two. Bill Belichick, the greatest coach of all time, Robert Kraft, saving this franchise from going to St. Louis. Yes, we can expound on them if we want to. But they are left off this list for the moment because we're just going players. Otherwise, you really only have one person if you include those two. So, Brian, let's get right into it. I think we both know pretty damn well who the first person on our list is. Who is it for you?
Well, yeah, the first person on my list is Thomas Brady.
You get out of here. No way.
I know. Hot take alert. Cue the siren. We'll save that for later. But I mean, the greatest player in the history of the game. It's Tom Brady. What more can you say? It's been an unbelievable run. I remember watching him back in the day at U of M, battling out with Drew Henson and. Finding out the Patriots took him, pick 199, the whole deal. The rest was history. About a year and a half later, 5 Super Bowls out of 7 trips. Some records along the way, some controversy along the way. It certainly hasn't been without its ups and downs in the media and whatnot. But throughout it all, Tom Brady is, was just ranked the number 1 player going into 2017 by his peers on the NFL Top 100. I mean, the guy is, I believe he's turning 88 years old this year on August 3rd. So it's unbelievable. And the cornerstone of the franchise, exactly what you want out of your quarterback and the model franchise, cornerstone of, anybody should be looking at for their team. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious. Tom Brady, you hit a lot on it there. 40-year-old quarterbacks aren't supposed to be this good. There was the whole Brady was declining thing, and there was the whole, that was on, 98.5, WEEI, all that stuff. There was even a lot of people got on, friend of the show, Paul Perillo, for saying there was playoff Brady. And Tom Brady, there was a stretch there where he wasn't good in the playoffs. He really wasn't. The Patriots made it to a Super Bowl in 2011, kind of despite him. And then Bill Belichick drafted Jimmy Garoppolo, and we have the famous, we all know Tom's age and contract situation line. And from then on out, Tom Brady has been better in his age 37, 38, and 39 season, which is just unfathomable. He's the greatest quarterback of all time. He has 5 Super Bowl rings. He has the most wins of all time. Yes, there's been the controversy, but in the end, 20 years down the road, people aren't gonna look at that. People are gonna look at it and say, we witnessed. Really, if you look at it, 2 of the top, probably 3 greatest quarterbacks of all time, going at it in a rivalry here, and number 1 came out on top multiple times. That being Tom Brady coming out over Peyton Manning. I know there's some controversy in calling Peyton Manning one of the all-time greats to some people, but he was. But Tom Brady's the best of all time, and obviously front and center on our Mount Rushmore. So let's hop right into your next one. I know you're running thin already. You had to come up with the 4th one. But what do we have for number 2? Yep. You're muted here, Brian.
There we
go.
Little
technical difficulty. There we go.
I'm an old soul with these computers you kids are using these days. Teddy Bruschi, man. My guy Teddy. I had to look at, the guy that I look, on the defensive side of the ball. Like when I look back at, especially, over the first 3 Super Bowls, even back into the Parcells days, you look back and you think about the heartbeat of that defense. And for me, it was Teddy Bruschi. The guy was everywhere. The proverbial green dot wearer these days, the guy you want, patrolling, the guy who plays all over the place. He was an amazing pass rusher, coming into the league as more of that edge guy, almost like what they want out of Shane McClellan these days with that hybrid off the line or edge type guy. But then really kind of molded into that prototypical middle linebacker. And everything from the stroke and everything that he came back from, it was amazing. The guy is he's even awesome today, even though he's on ESPN, the Hot Take Network. The guy is what I think of when I think of a leader on the defensive side of the ball. And he's always going to have a place in New England history with all those rings on his fingers too. So, and you even look back and you see him on the the half-hour specials when they put each Super Bowl season together, and the guy that they always go to for the interviews is Teddy Bruschi. Talking about his speeches with the guys, at halftime and breaking down the season. Teddy was the leader of those defenses, and those are some pretty damn good defenses. So I'm going Teddy Bruschi up there.
Yeah, Teddy famous for how do we feel about Teddy Bruschi being on Mount Rushmore?
Mm-hmm.
Not on mine. I understand why he would be on some people's. Teddy Bruschi was the leader of, the best Patriots defense of all time. Really, that 2004 season, he cemented himself. He was unbelievable. And you always have those memories. The Miami Dolphins game with the snow coming down and Teddy Bruschi dragging his toes into the end zone, throwing the snow up in the air. You have those memories. Teddy Bruschi, definitely an all-time Patriots great. I think there's players that would be a bit above him, but there's no doubt that Teddy holds a special place in the hearts of New England fans, and there's no doubt that he's probably the best middle linebacker to ever play on this team.
Absolutely. And again, with the Mount Rushmore, we're not looking – I don't know if it's pure – some people will take it in a pure stats mentality. But for me, it's kind of, who do you think of when you think of the Patriots, and who will we think of, like you talked about just a little bit ago, who will we think about, 20 years from now when we look back on this generation? For me, in my opinion, he was my dad's favorite player. So I always kind of took to him that way. And then, with the off-field stuff and the struggle and the stroke and all these different storylines with him, I will look back and remember him. So he's got to be up there for me.
So my number 2 is going to be actually another linebacker. This isn't in any particular order, by the way. It's a Hall of Fame linebacker. It's Andre Tippett. A lot of people forget to include Tip on these. Tip played 11 seasons. He had 100 sacks. He was that edge rusher in an era where there weren't many. And he gets overshadowed by the few that there were in that era. I mean, he's playing at the same time as Lawrence Taylor. There was no better edge rusher than LT, but Tippett was pretty damn good. He made his way into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, well deserved. You look at what Tip was able to do. He was a perennial Pro Bowler. He was a linebacker of the year multiple times. NFL All Defense. He was an All Pro. He's just a guy who a lot of people overlook because those teams were hot garbage. Those teams, other than the '85 season, he played in a very tough era to get recognized. But he was a phenomenal talent coming out of Iowa. He was a prototypical pass rusher. If he played in today's NFL, he'd be one of these Von Miller type of players. That edge rusher that just flies off the edge. But he was so much bigger. You look at what Andre Tippett was. I've had the chance to meet and work with Tip a few times. Incredibly nice guy, but he is still he ran about 6'5", and I don't know what he played at, probably about 250, 260. But he's still that size, and he don't know how you can get multiple yards as a pass rusher. He knew how to use his weight. He knew how to use his hands. And, I'm a guy, I'm 6'4", I'm a little over 300 pounds, and Tip in his mid-50s, late 50s right now, I believe, could beat the absolute crap out of me. Tip on my Mount Rushmore.
Can't fault you. I mean, when you look back into the history of an organization, you got to automatically go to the Hall of Famers, right? I don't have my mind just because we want to, create a little, a little lack of continuity between our lists. Obviously, everybody's gonna have Tom Brady, but Tip is right there. If you didn't take him, I was taking him. 100 sacks. I'm looking at 100 sacks in 151 games. That'll do. I know. When you're looking at, they have him listed at 240. Seems a little light to me. But yeah, I've had a chance to see him in person. I got to my first game was I ever went to old Foxborough Stadium. I saw Tip play. Obviously, I was too young to remember seeing him play. I remember the team losing to the Lions in overtime at home. But yeah, I mean, today's day and age, a guy 6'4", 240, 250. That's almost like a Vic Beasley runs at like a 240 now. But you're right, like Von Miller, 255, that range. That was our guy. Yeah, Hall of Famer. Got to put him on the Mount Rushmore. Don't blame me there.
Yeah, so like I said, he's a guy who really was ahead of his time. The way he played, the aggression he played with. I mean, you look at some of the hits Andre Tippett laid on quarterbacks. He would be thrown out of the NFL today for some of the hits he made. He was just big, nasty, physical. One of my favorite players. Brian, let's go to your third here.
Okay, my third is gonna be I won't go to the hot take one, which is apparently got to be a hot take one. I'm tossed up for this one. It was kind of between. I was a big Chris Slade fan, but you can't put Chris Slade on the Mount Rushmore of Patriots all time. Troy Brown, man.
I would hang up the line on you if you put Chris Slade on the Mount Rushmore.
No, I know. I'd be in trouble. So, Terry Glenn. How about Terry Glenn? Can we put him on the? No, okay, no Terry Glenn.
Anytime your coach calls him a girl.
Right. Yeah. But no, when I look back, again, for me, it's about this nostalgic feeling and about the guys who am I going to think of when I look back and I'm telling my kids and my grandkids about, the greatest generation of professional football anybody's ever seen. It's going to be guys like Teddy Bruschi and Troy Brown. The guy was around, from the beginning, from the Parcells days, and was so integral in those 3 Super Bowls, particularly. I mean, who could ever forget him playing defensive back for some of those games in the second half of the 2003 regular season. They won the Super Bowl in 2004 that year. No, 2004 regular season, 2005, that following January or February, one of those days. I forget when they moved the Super Bowl back to February, but Troy Brown was there, man. I believe he had 2 or 3 interceptions. And Bruschi, in his interview on the NFL network, NFL Films special, is complaining, hey, we got this Troy Brown guy out here playing defensive back. You guys finishes the season with more interceptions than I got. The guy did everything you asked of him, and I'll never forget. It's the best punt returner we've had, since ever. But he's been tough to replace in that respect. And that first year, he was really Tom Brady's go-to guy in 2001. The offense, passing offense, kind of ran through him. So Troy Brown, man, that guy is on my Mount Rushmore for sure.
I'm not the biggest Troy Brown guy. I think that he is one of those one of those guys that gets overrated by Patriots fans.
Oh, absolutely.
If I can say it that way, because he was a fan favorite, and the one memory I have of Troy Brown is when Tom Brady threw a pick to Keenan McCardell, and game over, Patriots weren't going to win the Super Bowl in 2003. And here comes Troy Brown, strips the ball back out, recovers the fumble. Patriots go on the drive. They end up winning that game in San Diego against a very, very talented Chargers team.
Really good team.
Then they went on. They beat Pittsburgh. They won the Super Bowl. They beat Indy, and then they went to the Super Bowl. And that's the quintessential play of Troy Brown's career. That scrappy, never going to stand out physically, never really going to stand out as the best player on the field. But when you needed a play, he was a guy who could make a play. I look at, he was on all those good teams, but when you look at impact on those teams, there are so many defenders from that era that I would put above him. I would even put a guy like Vince Wilfork above him. He's not on my list, but I would put a guy like Vince on there. I would put a Teddy Bruschi, a Ty Law. People like that would go above him for me personally. But Troy, when you're talking about fan favorite, definitely he's on that top list. And he continues to do it. Whenever he's in Foxborough, he does some hysterical things. I mean, they had the 15-year Super Bowl reunion a little while back, and Troy's out there dropping F-bombs on the mic for everyone and whooping the crowd up. He's a guy who's been a fan favorite and will continue to be for the rest of his life. I mean, he always holds a special spot in Patriots fans' hearts.
Yeah, I mean, and again, for me in a Mount Rushmore, that's what we're looking for. The guy who's going to kind of be the quintessential Patriot, the Teddy Bruschi's and Troy Browns. Those guys are what it means to be a Patriot in the Bill Belichick era. Just do what you're asked, be the team guy. And they were at least above average players. Bruschi obviously really good, but was Troy Brown overrated? In the eyes of New England fans, absolutely. He's not that much bigger than Antonio Brown, but obviously not near the athleticism. But the guy could hold his own. He had some hands, but his ability to contribute even in his later years on literally all three phases. Do whatever it takes to bring a championship home. The guy's up there for me, number 80.
Yeah, I mean, you might have a fan in Bill Belichick. I bet you if you asked Belichick, he would probably be on his top list. That's a guy who was a quintessential Bill Belichick guy. He wasn't here. Belichick didn't bring him here, but Belichick pushed him and got the most out of him. A guy who will be a standout contributor on offense, defense, and special teams. It's a guy who Bill Belichick, I bet you would agree with you on.
And for me, also with these Mount Rushmore guys, specifically with these last two, they're guys where I can look back, and when I look and think about their careers, I picture them not only in the old flying Elvis uniforms of the '90s with Bill Parcells and Pete Carroll, but also the new revamped uniforms that we've got since since 2000 or whenever. I think it was like 2000 they brought the new uniforms in. I see them literally in both sets of uniforms. That's how long their careers spanned in New England. And fortunately, I've got one of those Flying Elvis jerseys. It's a Curtis Martin, but if he could have just spent a couple more years in Foxborough.
He would have been on here.
Oh, Curtis Martin's the man.
Down, but...
I love Curtis Martin, but no, a couple more years and he would have been in the discussion for me. But yeah, the guys that spanned, multiple coaching regimes and stuck with Bill Belichick, and guys that were Patriots for life.
So my third wasn't a Patriot for life. My third is actually still in the NFL, just not with the Patriots. Adam Vinatieri.
Guy's a monster.
He's the guy who spanned those multiple coaching things. He's 40 years old now, still one of the best kickers in the NFL. And when you look at Vinatieri, all you have to do is look at the Snow Bowl. Those are two of the most impressive kicks you'll see in your entire life. Let alone the fact that all their Super Bowls were won by, or two of their three Super Bowls were won by field goal. It's not a coincidence that the guy had ice water in his veins. When you needed a big kick, he gave it to you. When you needed consistency, he gave it to you. He had a big leg. He was a hell of a kickoff guy before that mattered. He was here for 96, 01, 03, 04. If you hadn't moved on from him, it's crazy because Stephen Gostkowski has now been here longer than Vinatieri was. Vinatieri's been a Colt longer than he was a Patriot. But when you hear the name Adam Vinatieri, you think New England Patriots, and you think 2001, Louisiana Superdome, the kick goes up, and he immediately starts jumping up and down. He knew it was in before it went in, and he's a guy that I can't leave off. There's so many great defenders, so many great players. You look back even in the foregone era of a guy like a Mike Haynes, a Russ Francis, somebody like, those guys, or, Wilfork, Law, Seymour, Brewski, all these guys. Adam Vinatieri had a bigger impact from a much lesser role. He won you, really almost single-handedly won you everything you want in 01. Nothing happens in 01 without those snowball kicks. Those are, I was still relatively young at that time, and I've gone back and I've watched him multiple times. And it's unbelievable. He essentially kicked a rock 46 yards through the snow. He's got to be on the list for me.
Yeah, when I saw that you stole him, I was upset because, and you brought it up. He was with the Patriots for so long, but he's been gone for so long that Stephen Gostkowski is entering his 11th year in the league.
You're 11 this year.
Yeah, oh my, do you remember? I remember who's this guy? Coming in thinking. I mean, he better be good, because he's got some shoes to fill. And hell, it's been 11 years. Adam Vinatieri, man, you nailed it on the head too when you brought up the Snow Bowl. I mean, I can still see the guys that as he says in the interview on the NFL Films, that with their big size 14 shoes, kicking the snow out, trying to make that patch a little bit bigger, and then Gruden calls the timeout and gives them a little more time to uncover a little bit more of that plant foot spot for him, and hits the biggest kick, probably the most difficult kick in the conditions in the history of the National Football League, given the weather, given everything that had happened up to that point, given really the whole season, with everything that happened, America rallying around the Patriots and rallying around this young guy, Tom Brady, the comeback kid, and this scrappy, resilient team who, wore red, white, and blue in the year of 9/11. Everything, all of these storylines compacted into that kick, and for him to hit that kick in the Snow Bowl to move on after all that had happened, even in that game with the tough rule, and the game was over. The game was over, and the dream was dead. Until it wasn't, and Adam Vinatieri made sure that it wasn't gonna end there, and obviously they went on, and he had a couple more illustrious kicks after that. Talking to Miguel Benzon, PatsCap.com, PatsCap on Twitter, and he was at the Superdome, and he says he remembers that kick falling about 10 rows in front of him. That's where he's sitting. He's sitting in the end zone for that game. Can you imagine what that must have felt like in person? Because I remember watching it in a hotel room with my dad and my brother in Detroit when it happened, and they almost, they were probably, somebody was probably concerned about what was going on in the room next to him when that kick went through the uprights. Adam Vinatieri, man, Adam Vinatieri was the man, is the man, still is the man, right?
Mm-hmm.
The guy's awesome.
Yeah, he's, for me, one of the greatest kickers in NFL history. You don't see many kickers go into the Hall of Fame. He's a surefire first ballot Hall of Famer.
Well, and you remember what Belichick says about him in that 2001 documentary. He's probably our best player on the team in 2001. So to have the ball,
he was more than just a kicker.
Right.
He was more than just a kicker. He was athletic. He made plays in the kicking game. You look at kickers now. They kick the ball and they wait there. They stand, and if somebody tries to break, they hopefully throw themselves in front of them to allow somebody to catch up. Vinatieri would be running down with the gunners on kickoffs, and he would make tackles. He was an athletic guy. He wasn't overly big, but he was tough. And, all you can hear in your head when you think of Adam Vinatieri is Gil and Gino losing their minds when he kicked that game-winning kick. And what else I think of, we're talking about the snowball, just memories of it. Mike Compton going down doing the Snow Angels while everyone else celebrated. It's still one of my favorite things. But we go from a surefire thing to a surefire hot take. Brian, give me number 4.
Well, you said it was players only.
Players only.
None of this happens. We don't talk about any of this if it isn't for this guy. It's like for our Mount Rushmore, it's maybe after the hot take it'll have to be just a plaque that goes in front of it, but. Since you took all my awesome picks like Tippett and Vinatieri, my guy that is going on as my 4th choice isn't even or wasn't at no point in any time in his career a New England Patriot, and it's Mo Lewis, man.
Sound the alarm!
Yeah, woo! Yeah, here we go. There goes Phillips again. We aren't having this conversation. We aren't talking about Vinatieri's snow bowl kicks. We aren't talking about Tom Brady and his 5 Super Bowls and 7 tries and we aren't having this conversation at all if it's not for Mo Lewis literally almost killing Drew Bledsoe on that hit in September 2001, and the rest is history. Tom Brady comes in. And down the road, there's more controversy when Drew is healthy, but Bill sticks with him. Now, I know there are so many in New England talking, who will say, "Oh, Bill was gonna go to him regardless because they were carrying so many quarterbacks that it was gonna be Tom's team eventually." No, it wasn't. That's just not true. It was
It may have happened further down the line because of another injury. Because, at that point, unfortunately, don't get me wrong, I love Drew Bledsoe. But at that point in his career, he was injury prone, and it's the biggest injury that happened. The man had his chest cavity collapsed. He was bleeding internally. People forget how bad that injury was. You hear the hit, and it was just devastating hit, but it would have probably been too little too late had you not gone to Brady, because he really worked his way into that 0-1 season. People forget there were games where he was throwing for 160, 170, 180 yards. You were leaning heavily on the defense in the run game.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, it took some time for Tom to get, to really get accustomed to the speed of the game. But he did. And, and Drew handled it exactly how I would want my guy to handle it. It's not an easy situation. We see kind of a similar situation. We saw it last year with Tony Romo, and a little different. It wasn't in season or anything, but it was in the preseason, of course. But you want your guy to still want the job, but the foresight of Bill Belichick to stick with Tom Brady when the decision wasn't that clear cut and that easy later on in the season, and to ride it out. And even you remember the intense pressure of the 2 weeks between that win in Pittsburgh after Drew came in off the bench. Mm-hmm. That 2 weeks of media coverage was ridiculous. It was the story. We don't have any of this if it's not for Mo Lewis, man. Mo Lewis is it. Mo Lewis, people forget how good he was too. He terrorized the AFC East there for a while. So I've got bad memories of those Jets teams beating those Pete Carroll teams and Adrian Morrell running all over Foxborough and Wayne Krebet and Mo Lewis laying the wood on people. But yeah, if it's not for that hit at the end of that game and bringing in Tom Brady, we're not sitting here. So it'll be the guy way in the back of the Mount Rushmore, whoever that guy is back there, Tom Jefferson, whatever.
Is your Teddy Roosevelt?
Yeah, the Teddy James Madison guy. But whoever, it's back there in the back. But since you stole that Vinatieri from me, it's got to be Mo Lewis.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little offended that you put a Jet on here.
Hey, I know.
So I'm gonna bring it all back. I'm gonna put a nice tight bow on it. You said Mo Lewis terrorized the AFC East. I'm gonna go to a guy who terrorized the NFL. John Hannah, the first All-Famer for the Patriots. Hog Hannah, 10-time All-Pro. What's crazy is he was 10-time All-Pro, only a 9-time Pro Bowler. Named by Sports Illustrated as the greatest offensive lineman of all time.
That's the best stat right there, that All-Pro versus Pro Bowls. Like, he's got more All-Pro teams than he does Pro Bowls. That's, just the time he was.
John Hannah comes from an era that a lot of people, it's a foregone era. John Hannah was a beast, though. He ran, according to his official stats, he ran 6'2", 265. Played 13 years as a Patriot. Could you imagine a guard weighing 265 pounds right now? They would get cut day one. But John Hannah was mean. He was nasty. He might be the best pure run blocker of all time. If you can go back and watch some game tapes of those, even if you watch his highlight reel, he was taking those great NFL lines of his day. You're talking the 70s and the 80s. You're talking Minnesota, Pittsburgh, teams like that are, littered with Hall of Famers. And John Hannah was the most feared opponent of all those people. John Hannah, if it wasn't for Tom Brady, would still probably be considered the greatest Patriot of all time. He was a true Patriot. You look at the thing that Bill Belichick loves to say, the best ability is availability. The guy missed 5 games in his career. 183 games that he played out of 188 possible. Unbelievable. And he was the anchor of an offensive line that set the NFL record for rushing yards on a team that, they had good running backs, but not any that should total over 3,100 total rushing yards in a season. A number that, if any team came close to that now, it would be unbelievable. And yes, it's a different era, but even in that era, John Hannah, the toughest SOB that you'd ever see on a football field.
Pictures of John Hannah now still scare me. That's how I judge the old guys. Does this old guy still look like he would literally whip your ass in a bar fight? And the answer absolutely is yes with John Hannah. You got 40 pounds on John Hannah. Even if John Hannah was at his playing weight, my money's on John Hannah hands down.
He at 66 he would still kill me.
Yes. I won't be disingenuous and say I've gone back and looked at a bunch of tape of John Hannah, but you don't need to. All you need to hear is the stories of people who did watch him, and our relatives and our friends and media members who got the chance to watch this guy, and a guy that absolutely dominated. Like that's the best stat of the entire show is 10 All-Pro teams, 9 Pro Bowls, because the guy just did it every single year, and against, like you said, some of those lines. It's a different era, but, had John Hanna grown up in this era and gotten on the weight programs and nutrition programs and whatnot, you'd probably be looking at a guy who, was like a Kyle Long type body who just, was an absolute athletic specimen and just pure raw strength. These guards nowadays are crazy with what they can do. But yeah, like I said, I won't act like I've seen a bunch of tape on him or anything, but you really don't need to. You just need to listen to the people who have, and John Hanna definitely needs to be on the Mount Rushmore. He's one of the best Pats of all time.
Yeah, I mean, like it's been said, he's arguably one of the greatest offensive linemen of all time. You get into guard versus tackle and different eras and all that. You can call him the greatest offensive lineman of his era and arguably one of the best of all time. And so he's on my list right behind Tom Brady as greatest Patriots. So on my Mount Rushmore. And so just to recap, Brian, can you use the name off your 4 real quick?
Yeah, it's Tom Brady, Teddy Bruschi, Troy Brown, and Mo Lewis.
Mo, I still get the alarms out, everyone. B Phillips_PP on Twitter. Let him know your disdain here. For me, it's Brady, Tippett, Vinatieri, and finally John Hanna. So, very different Mount Rushmores, but all these players very impactful. The one obvious glaring one is Tom Brady. And again, this is players only. If we went all Patriots, you'd have Kraft and Belichick on there. We don't need to get into that. We all know what they mean to the team. We wanted more than one person for each of us. So
you probably put Jonathan Kraft on there too. Jonathan Kraft and what his dad has given him, the power to do with the media and growing the content of the team. The Patriots lead the way, and he's the I don't know if he's the chairman or he's on the advisory for digital media on the NFL committee. The Patriots lead the way in accessibility to fans, and it's something that their fans that nationally doesn't get a lot of credit because of they see a couple Bill Belichick press conferences, but the way the Patriots are available to their fan base is the best of any team and arguably in professional sports, and it's because Jonathan Kraft made decisions back in the 90s that allowed, guys like the PFW and Progress teams, Fred Kirsch and
shout out Fred Kirsch.
Yeah, what's up, Fred? And these guys to make decisions objectively and give the fans what they, an objective glimpse at what the team's all about. So Jonathan Kraft could even go up on there if we're not talking just strictly players, but. Who's in your honorable mention? You have time for a couple honorable mention players?
Yeah, so if we want honorable mention, the one that just barely missed for me is Ty Law.
Yes.
Guys who I believe will be in the NFL Hall of Fame and be there very soon. So Ty Law, Vince Wilfork for me is a guy who will also go in there. Vince Wilfork is so underrated. Oh. He is one of the better defensive linemen that I've seen in my lifetime. Just not by, you don't look at the numbers with him. You look at the impact he had. Defense, like they play and the whole defense behind him. Offense has had a game plan for a nose tackle. That doesn't happen in today's NFL, but it did with Vince.
You love those big guys in the trenches, man. Those are your dudes.
I do. I'm a big fat guy myself, so I gotta give love to those guys. But another one, Russ Francis, I think, would be pretty close. Mike Haynes, though.
What about Gino Cappelletti, huh?
Yeah, Gino could be on there, and he could be on there twice, doing the announcing as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, some of those older players don't get enough credit.
Right, and like I said, for me, I'm sure we'll hear a little bit of where are the old guys? Yeah, I feel like I'd be doing a disservice to them to talk about them like I knew every single thing about them. And is it on us to kind of learn about them a little more and become more aware of what their impact was? Absolutely. And but I think we're also in such an amazing stretch right now that it's tough it's tough to overlook some of the core players in these teams that we've seen recently. I think we're looking at another guy right now who's going to end up being one of these Mount Rushmore type players, one of those guys that when you look back on this era, specifically from 2010 on or 2009 on, Rob Gronkowski is going to be one of those type of guys.
Eventually, he'll be there.
Right. When you look back, it's going to be, that was Gronk, and this is what Gronk did, and this is who Gronk was, and this is what he meant to the team, and the guy went in and almost enjoyed blocking more than catching touchdowns, and he threw guys out of the club, and that was Gronk, and it's a personality like we've never seen, and he's kind of that new wave of Patriot. He exemplifies everything. Anything Bill wants him to do, he does, and he does everything at a crazy high level, and he's eventually going to be up there. So they're going to have to just chisel out a new wall.
Right, and just a couple more guys, real quick before I let you get on a rant at the end here. A new age guy, William McGinnis.
Yeah.
Again, heart and soul. He's in that same territory as Brewski for me, where it's tough to necessarily put him on, but the winning doesn't happen without him. A guy that kind of gets overlooked because, again, the teams he played on sucked. Bruce Armstrong.
Yeah.
Yes, he left, but he was the best left tackle in the NFL for a stretch of time. And then one that a lot of people, he's going to get overlooked because of what the Patriots offense is now. But what Stanley Morgan,
a guy that when I all guilty.
Anyone else in what they're doing, I enjoy reading other people's stuff, and when I do my board, I let it be my board type of thing. I have positional rankings coming out in about the next week, and I'll have a roster projection as we head towards camp here. You can follow me on Twitter at Matt_Lapan. It's LAPAN. And next week, we're going to go around the AFC East. So we're going to have producer Brian back on, talk about the Bills a little bit. We're going to have a guest on. Stay tuned on Facebook and on Twitter. Our league at Patriot Central Radio on Facebook. And make sure you check that out. We'll give you updates on guests. We'll give you updates on what work Brian and I are doing. And we'll give you updates. We have a show poll for
I have an idea, Matt.
now. I'm Matt LaFan for Brian.
Hold on.
Real quick, Brian Harrington.
I got an idea. Why don't they tweet us who they want on the show?
All right,
we've had everybody. I mean, we've had everybody.
Hit us
I mean,
at Patriot Central on Twitter.
Throw a name out there. Tweet us who you guys want on. One quick announcement. Doing a big festival August 12th in New Bedford, Mass. Those in the New Bedford area. We are working with Matt LaPan's agent to get him to appear and sign some autographs. We're still negotiating. We're in a little bit of a negotiation block right now. The incentives is a little bit too much per stroke of the marker.
Salary cap.
If we're able to get him to come, I'm sure there's a lot of people in the New Bedford area who would love to meet Matt LaPan. They're big fans of the podcast. They would love to meet and sign some autographs. I'm working on bringing him August 12th to Buntwood Park, people. But in the meantime, tweet us. Who do you want on the show? Fred Smirlis, Steve Diassi, whoever you want. We've had them all on. We love them all. We want to get everyone back on. There's a lot of options out there, so tweet us. What about Lenny Clark next week? Someone like that will be kind of cool. He's in the news right now. There's plenty of options. Tweet us suggestions, and I'm pretty sure you guys know I can make it happen. So tweet us.
Tweet that to @Patriot Central. For Matt LaPan, Brian Phillips, and Brian Harrington behind the glass. We'll catch you.